period, there is a little bit inconvenience started to emerge in our mind. And archaeology is never been considered as a some sort of the discipline. It's a method, it's a tool. And archaeological tool are not a discipline. They are the methods. They are the, you can say, the process by which we get the sources, we get the information to write about the history. And in layman, just a minute. For the layman, archaeology is generally considered as the study of past culture. How we study the past culture? Through the analysis of surviving material remains. Archaeological tools started to dug out these surviving material remains. Interpretation of these surviving material remains was also a part of the archaeological process. It means that archaeology is necessary almost to reconstruct the history of any period, even in modern period. You may raise a question, how we can use the archaeology in modern period? We cannot study the colonial technology, colonial architecture in the absence of the tools of archaeology. Archaeology especially consists of two methods everybody knows, like first exploration and second is excavation. Exploration may or may not lead to excavations, but excavations never preceded and always preceded by exploration. Exploration means when you study the surface, and it generally dominated by the surveys, ground survey, aerial survey, subsurface survey. Ground survey, when you walk on the ground and collected the artifacts, collected the evidences, material evidences of the bygone eras. And simply ground survey is one of the oldest way of exploration under archaeology. Now, whenever you visit any archives, generally a term we use is we are here to survey the archival sources. Survey means when we look anything with attention, with some definite purpose in our mind. Second type of the survey is aerial survey. Earlier, aerial survey is done by the balloons, by having the balloons. But now we are living in the era of science and technology. Science facilitates the archaeology too much. Aerial survey is now taking place through the planes, and the most, you can say, latest. You are getting my PPT PowerPoint? You are getting, anybody can tell me, you are getting my PowerPoint?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now the latest invention of the science and technology which facilitate our archaeology is the drone survey. Drone is the latest one. Parallel to the drone, we are having a remote sensing. We are having a satellite survey. And with this advancement in science and technology, archaeology got more equipped with such type of the things. The third type of the survey is subsurface survey. It's very interesting. In exploration, we never dug out any ground. We never dug out any mound, any cultural mound. Having the beneath this cultural mound, we have a old civilization. What we did, now we have a lot of scientific instruments that can study what lies in the ground up to 2 meters, 3 meters. Subsurface surveys, again, it's an advancement in science and technology. We use like electrometer. Through electrometer, we can easily come to know beneath the ground up to 3 meters what type of the objects lies. What the interpretation of this object again lies with the archaeologist. Almost archaeologist is just like a historian, and the integrity of the historian always bring the honesty in the researches. In the same way, archaeologist, integrity of the archaeologist always brings the honesty in researches. And in subsurface surveys, what happened? Without disturbing the ground, the scientific instrument can easily give you the result of what lies in this beneath the ground. And sometimes these all aerial survey and subsurface surveys always, and you can say it's a economic measures on one point of time. How without going for excavation involves a huge money, but you can easily subsurface surveys and then you come to know whether something lies in the ground or not lies in the ground. So you go for the survey or you don't go for the survey. What will happen after these surveys? We go for excavation. Sometime it may be possible because surveys indicated that we don't need any excavation. Enough information have been collected through these surveys. But ultimately, sometime we go for excavation in demand to more information. Ultimately, you know very well, we have two type of the excavation, horizontal and vertical. Horizontal excavation is a very time consuming and very, you can say, it demands a lot of fund, because but horizontal excavation is very important because a all aspects of a single culture can easily be reconstructed through the horizontal excavation. And sometime to reconstruct the history of any civilization, we need horizontal excavation. And one thing you keep in your mind, surveys, though we have a lot of scientific instruments, but there is no substitute of the excavation, physical excavation, like horizontal. So, and the second most important excavation is known as vertical excavation. Vertical excavation, we generally go for vertical excavation for two purposes: to create a relative chronology. Vertical excavation generally exposes how many habitation, how many strata lies in the mound, how each strata signifies the each culture, how many culture in sequence breed in a mound, in a cultural mound, and which civilization come first, which civilization comes second. This type of the relative chronology could be possible with vertical excavation. Second, we have a stratigraphy. Stratigraphy again is very important to know the extent of any culture, any civilization. And stratigraphy always lead us, I can give you a very important example. We have a Gavana nearby. At Gavana, we have a Kusana period artifacts be collected from Gavana. Nearby Gavana, there is a one village known as Ogar. From Ogar, we collected modern antiquities. We collected Kusana antiquities. Then these two type of the findings led us to conclude that under this ogre village was under the habitation during the modern period as well as under the Kusanaj. But during the Kusanaj period, the people they migrated from ogre to Gawana and they habitated the Gawana. So such type of the picture, full-fledged picture, can be created through vertical excavations. You know, you may raise a question why I'm talking about these methods. Because these methods, at least you should know about the archaeological methods, how we uses these archaeological methods in other parts of the history. And now you know very well, archaeological application in history classify the history into three periods. The first, prehistoric period. In prehistoric period, we are totally depends on archaeology, archaeological tools. The material remains have been dug out by the archaeologist. We uses the archaeology to discover, to excavate the material remains of that era. And here there is a complete absence of any language or written records. We don't have any written records. That's why it is known as prehistoric period. Here, the archaeology is the only tool to gather the information. It's only tool which provide the sources to reconstruct the history of that period. Prehistoric period includes Stone Ages, all Mesolithic, Neolithic, Paleolithic, all these information be gathered by application of archaeology. Second, classification of the history based on the application of archaeology is a proto-historic period. Proto-historic period is that period where we have a language, but we fail to decipher that. We have a language, but we have don't any knowledge to decipher, to read this language. Like Indus Valley civilization. Again, though the written records, written sources are existed, but it's our inability to read these written sources. We again totally based on the archaeology. Here again, archaeology provided a information, and the total information about these cultures have been provided by archaeology. And that's why this period is known as proto-historic period. And the third classification of the history, again based on the archaeology period. You know very well, historic period is having a written records, having a language, and the language which can easily be deciphered. And we have a large number of the written records, large number of the written records. Here, archaeology play as a secondary role. But you know, in historic period, the role of archaeology is very crucial. And even beyond imagination, archaeology played a very significant role in writing the history of a historic period. And I tell you one thing, the span of the time for prehistoric period is much larger, much larger than the proto-historic period. And the span of the time and the time frame for this proto-historic period is much bigger than the historic period. For you, historic period is almost 2600, or almost and if you stretch this time 3000 years back, you can and give to the historic period. Now, archaeology, how archaeology played a role in historic period. And and again, archaeology when have been applied to to verify, to confirm, yeah, archaeology have been applied for the reconstruction of the historic period where we have a written sources. This is a new term we prefer to give this aspect, that is known as historical archaeology. Historical archaeology, in other words, can be defined as a application of archaeology to the historical period where we have a written sources in large number. And here, how we use the archaeology in the historical period? Archaeology, archaeology here played a role in especially defining the written data. Written data, whatever has been given in the written sources, it either it can be verified, it can be confirmed through the application of archaeology. You know, historical archaeology, especially the historical period where we have a ample written records, these ample written records have a gaps. Now you raise a question, what type of the gaps written records are having? Written records, like I would like to give you a example. Megasthenes told a lot about the modern capital of Pataliputra. And he told us there is a huge modern court existed there. And he talked about a lot about the palaces, modern court, and the fortification of Pataliputra, and so many things. Apart from it, some classical writers, Pliny, Arian, they have also quoted the Megasthenes. But we don't have any full-fledged picture of Pataliputra. And here archaeology played a very crucial role. How archaeology here have been applied to verify the information given by Megasthenes and others. And ultimately, to your surprise, when archaeological excavation took place at present modern Patna, and we come to know to what extent Megasthenes was correct, and to what extent these Pliny, Ptolemy, Arian, they have provided a correct information. When the archaeological excavation took place at Patna, first we got the evidences, a large number of the evidences of a huge fortification which has been mentioned by the Megasthenes and mentioned by these classical writers. And apart from it, to your surprise, we come across a very huge hall, pillared hall that has been used that have been used by the moderns as a code. And same was happened with Takshila. Takshila is very important, and we have a lot of information about the Takshila in writing. But here, one thing is very different. We don't know what type of the urban center Takshila was, how this urban center developed, what was the town planning of the Takshila, and what was the, you can say, the contemporary material culture prevailed at Takshila. And again, here the archaeology played a very crucial role, and a number of the excavation took place at Takshila, and and at least 3 places at Takshila have been excavated. And to your surprise, we have got a full-fledged picture of the, you can say, the success Mauryan Empire, and then the succession of the Kushanas at Mauryan Empire, then Sakaj and Pratyaharaj. And what type of the settlement Takshila was, got a full-fledged information. And these written sources have never provided the nature of the urban center, and other type, and their written sources are totally silent about the architecture. And the maximum word they have used it having a very huge buildings. But what do you mean by huge buildings can be defined by archaeology? Same was happened with Bhita. Bhita is a modern town, and we know only that Bhita was a trading town under the Mauryans. But what was the habitational pattern of the mercantile communities at Bhita, we don't know. Here again, we took the help of the archaeology, and these archaeological tools gave a full-fledged picture of the Bhita. And one thing here you keep in your mind, written sources having a gaps, of course, and these gaps can be filled with the help of the archaeology. Now the question arises: if we use the archaeology in the medieval period, then what's the position? How, when we uses the any archaeology, especially in the time scale of history, and in the medieval times, then it is known as medieval archaeology. But a large number of the scholars, they generally say that medieval archaeology is a part of historical archaeology, and there is no difference between both. Why we should use the word medieval archaeology? And other set of scholars, this medieval archaeology is a coming up subject. coming up discipline. And medieval archaeology is generally defined as a application of archaeology to the medieval sites. Application of archaeological tools to the medieval sites. Now the question arises, what exists? Why we use the medieval archaeology to the medieval sites? Since during the medieval period, we have a large number of the sources, written sources. Our archives are full of written sources, and not a single, but even vernacular sources in vernacular languages, sources in Persian languages, so many things, variety of the sources in written way we can gather from the archives. Farmans in the even in during the Mughal period, we have a lot of information. Again, the question arises: why we use the archaeology? These written records, these written sources of the medieval periods, they have provided ample information about the politics, about the wars, about the social system, about the administrative system, about the, you can say, conquest, and about the so many other aspects of the medieval, you can say, history and culture. But here we have to keep one thing in our mind: these medieval sources are handicapped on some aspects. Like these medieval sources are having a lot of gaps so far as the technology, so far as the tangible culture are concerned. These medieval sources told a lot about the politics, even society, even economy of the contemporary period, but they never talked about the technology. They never talked about the advancement in building technology. Sometimes they gave a passing reference, and passing reference is very important. Though we don't have the knowledge, we don't have a detailed knowledge of these passing references. I would like to give you a very important information, quoting some examples. Like Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he shifted his capital due to the plague from Delhi to Swargadwari. Swargadwari, he established the whole paraphernalia of Sultanate. But after, when this menace of the plague was faded away, then he again came back to Delhi. Now we don't, apart from this information in written sources, we don't know where is Swargadwari, what type of the paraphernalia he created at Swargadwari. Here, archaeology came to rescue us. And this is a gap in written sources. And when we started archaeological survey, and Swargadwari was successfully located near a very important district, Farrukhabad in UP. And to your surprise, where we and at the site of the Swargadwari, we come across a huge number of the ruined structure. These ruined structure clearly indicated what was the paraphernalia which has been settled down at Swargadwari, and what type of the construction, what type of the town they have developed, and what type of the economic activities were carried there. You may raise a question, how archaeology help us in reconstructing the economic history. To your surprise, we have a large number of the information relating with, for example, dyeing the cloth, dyeing the cloth, that is with indigo bats. And there is a references in written records with the indigo was produced in some areas, but how it was produced, how what type of the structure has been created to produce this indigo. We can be we can get this information only through archaeology. It's an archaeology which tells us how many beds, how many tanks have been built, how this indigo plant was put into a one tank to get it decayed with the water, and how this extraction of the water was dried up to get the indigo powder. All this process, that though that is we prefer to give a new name, industrial archaeology of the medieval period. And this whole process can be reconstructed only through archaeology. We don't have a detailed information in our medieval sources. And you know what was happened? Same was happened with water technology, hydraulic technology. In the medieval sources, we got a information like such and such has reconstructed a step bells, very step bells, and this step bells is unparalleled. We have some ruler has created a dam. We have a lot of information during the Sultanate and medieval period. The rulers have reconstructed a dam, like Alauddin Khilji, he himself created a Hoj Khas, present name, and a very huge dam. But what type of the hydraulic technology they implied in it? What type of the use of, you can say, water management and conservation took place at that time? It could be possible only by applying the tools of archaeology. You know, and hydraulic technology, and in regard to hydraulic technology, these medieval sources are completely silent. They gave the name, they gave the term used for that, and but they don't define how it moves. Like when we surveyed the Mughal dams, though these Mughal dams having a passing, very scary, very passing references, very in a very fragment passing references you can collect from the written sources, but they don't know, but they never tells us how this dam was constructed, how an embankment was constructed to dam the water, how the salius, how the water was collected to feed this dam, how the water was, when it started to overflow, then how the water was taking away outside this dam. That is known as inlet and outlet techniques. And they are completely silent about inlets and outlets technique. Apart from it, they never tells us how the embankment, what materials have been used in embankment. The maximum term medieval sources used a stone embankment has been constructed. How these stone pieces put together, how these embankment has been built, they never tells us. How this water was collected, even where this dam was built. Sometimes the medieval sources tells us that this dam is built at this place because having a ample source of water. But what type of the source of water? And to your surprise, in during the medieval period, a large number of the dams were constructed to collect and conserve the rainy water. What technology they have used to calculate in during the period of the rains, what should be the catchment area to collect this water? These medieval sources are not talking about it. It's an archaeology which tells us that the slope of the mountain was used to collect the rainy water, and this rainy water was channelized through the channels in the main dam. And apart from it, I would like to cite some example like at Fatehpur Sikri, we have a network of step bells, tanks, so many things, and these have been referred. But what type of the, you can say, technology they have used? And to your surprise, Fatehpur Sikri is a terraced town. It was constructed, the whole imperial paraphernalia was constructed on three terraces. Now the question arises, why they have created such a huge terrace? If you, I think everybody is well aware with the campus of the Salim Chishti Dargah, yani the mosque. Second, the personal, yani Jodabai Palace campus here, and third is the Diwan-e-Am campus. And these three very huge terraces have been created, and the buildings of different huge have been put together, have been classified and built on these three different terraces. And to your surprise, these terraces have been created not for the architectural point of view, but they have been created to collect the rainy water. And each terrace is connected with a huge water tank or step wells. And to your surprise, the water tanks are totally rain fed, and they only filled with coming any rainy water. And the major dimensions of these water tanks are such a that they can once collected rainy water to such an quantity that it can be used for the whole year. Step bells, of course, step bells have been built. Step bells, they are very good step bells. And written sources are mentioned, very important written, so very important step bells have been built at Fatehpur Sikri to cater the water needs. But these sources never tells us these step bells have been built at the crevices of the hills, and these crevices of the hills are having a source of water, ground source of water. And how these step wells are totally designed, how we can approach the water without having any stress. These step wells have also been used for the as a pleasure, for the picnic, as a pleasure garden. And this type of the technology, yeah, hydraulic technology, have never been provided and have never been mentioned in detail in the medieval sources. Another important aspect where the medieval sources are totally silent is the building technology. And to your surprise, even I have gone through the Lahori's description of Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal, a building, and hyperboles have been used for the Taj Mahal. He talked about the architecture. A very great architecture have been used. He talked about what was the plan used in Taj Mahal. The rest is not knowing from this description, medieval description of Taj Mahal. And here, archaeology played a very crucial role. What type of the building technology we have used, what type of the technology we have used in Taj Mahal? It's an archaeology which indicated during the medieval period we have used the building technology, and especially the technology that is very friendly to create the structure on the bank of river, river. And very important aspect of the archaeology is here that it defined the technology, it defined the architecture. And whenever we talk about building, of course, we get a in a very short way, passing references in the medieval sources. But these sources are completely silent. Sometimes they gave a blanket term for that technology, but how this technology was feasible, and you know very well, we have a three different, you can say, branches: architecture, structural engineering, and civil engineering. Architect is responsible to create a design. And structural engineers, they confirm whether this design which was created by architect is feasible or not. And if it is not feasible, so what changes should be made in this design? It's a work of structural engineers. And third comes the civil engineers. And whatever the design has been created by architect and it was confirmed by structural engineer, and this design was executed in the form of a building by civil engineers. And we talk about architecture, and two aspects we have never come across in the medieval sources: how the builder of any structure harmonize the gravitational force, how he harmonized, every structure is subject to a two type of the thrust of the gravitation. One is horizontal, another is vertical. How these two thrust of the gravity has been minimized, has been harmonized, medieval sources are totally silent about it. What is the four-centered arch? They use the Mughals, they have used the four-centered arch, but they don't have any answer why the Mughals have used the four-centered arch. The simply answer they gave, because in the Central Asia contemporary to the Mughals, there was a use of four-centered arch. But why Mughals they have used the four-centered arch? What is the structural necessity of four-centered arch? Why these four-centered arch started to dominate the construction of the structure during this period? It was, and can be created, it can be reconstructed only with the help of archaeology. It's archaeology which talks about why Mughals adopted this four-centered arch. What does this four-centered arch mean? Why the Mughal structure have been created on a raised platform? This raised platform is just to give the elevation, or these raised platforms have been created to, it's a technical necessity to have a four-centered arch. This aspect has been you can say, provided to us by archaeological tools. Apart from it, since I am citing the example of Taj Mahal, this building is, even after around 500 years have been passed away, but this building has no cracks at all. Even today, if you constructed a RCC building, it started to develop a cracks. And since Taj Mahal has never developed the cracks, so again, what type of the technology? The archaeologists, they investigated the technology which don't allow the seismic activities to create the cracks in this building. And to your surprise, when this Taj Mahal was completed after some time, then Shahjahan instructed the Aurangzeb to go and do some repair, because the one small a repair needed to the dome. And Aurangzeb as a prince came here and he repaired the Taj dome. And to your surprise, and this where he conducted this repair, even we cannot discover. There was great advancement in the science and technology. Medieval sources, it may be possible the writers of these medieval sources, they are not the scientists, but even some writers, they are very good at the work. They always define the things, but they on the technology, they are totally silent. Another important aspect of the Taj, even the Lodi structures, then Mughal structures, they have a bilateral symmetry. Bilateral symmetry, the you can say these medieval sources are not talking about bilateral symmetry. And how this bilateral symmetry has been created, they are totally silent. And this scientific aspects could not be possible without application of the great advancement in mathematics. And this aspect has again reconstructed with the help of the archaeological study of the Taj. Apart from it, you know, insofar as the building technology is concerned, the synthesis of different architectural style could not be possible without having a, you can say, the technological involvement. We have uses the lintels and the arches both combination at a one time, especially in the Tughlaq building. This is not a religious necessity. This is not a political necessity. Again, this is a structural necessity. And archaeologists, they have highlighted that when we uses the rubble stones, boulders to create any wall, it is here if you create an arch with the boulders, it is not having such a strength to survive for a longer period. So a lintel has been put at the spring point of the arches, and it's a technology. How you give the more strength? The fortification, a very generally in the medieval sources, we got a lot of information. A very Tughlaqabad fort. The forts, fortification walls have been created touching the sky, having a battlements. But how these fortification has been created, how the basins has been punctuated this fortification wall to give the strength, it was decided by the building technology. And these contemporary sources are completely silent about it. Again, we here use the word of archaeology that tells us about the this archaeology come forward to fill these gaps. Apart from it, we have a lot of pottery coming from the medieval sites. We have a, even in our collection, we have a full-fledged and intact pots used by the medieval rulers. These are the glazed. Contemporary sources are written a lot of words, lot of hyperboles about these pottery. It looks like glazing, this and that, but they are totally silent. How this glazed pottery, yeah, how this the pottery during the medieval period has been created. What was the process through which these potteries have been created? Again, here the archaeology filled this gap. And to your surprise, this pottery, even we have found a lot. But in front of the written sources, we generally discarded these pottery and the pieces of the pottery. And archaeologists, they are very particular about it because pottery was the artifacts which have been used by the contemporary society on a large scale. Apart from the architecture, it's a pottery which tells us and allow us to peep into the personal life of the ruling class as well as non-ruling class. And these are the gaps where we cannot do anything. And these gaps, besides these gaps, sometime we have to verify the information provided in written records. Like Abul Fazl talked a lot about the markets in Fatehpur Sikri. But whenever 20 years back, we don't have any site, we don't have any structures that can be designated as a market. And ultimately, our center has conducted an excavation there. And we have discovered a full-fledged market. How this market is having a central road and flanked by very beautiful shops on both sides. These shops are having also a chamber to keep the values, and a full-fledged marketing system. Markets, structure of the markets have been discovered, but it could be only possible by archaeology. Sometimes there is a lot of problem. Contemporary sources like contemporary sources are medieval sources are silent, and but we have a very faulty nomenclature. If today you visit the Fatehpur Sikri, you found Jodhabai Palace, and Jodhabai Palace It looks like there is a lot of confusion, though Jodhabai was the queen of the Jahangir, not the Akbar. So many things existed. But when you study archaeologically this structure, so-called structure of Jodhabai Palace, to your surprise, lower story was killed. Lower story of the Jodhabai Palace was built during the Akbar, and upper story was under Jahangir. And it could not be. Our sources are totally silent about this change in the things. So these are the major gaps in the medieval sources, and the it means that the archaeology have been applied on a large scale in medieval period, not only to verify and confirm the information given in the written sources, but the things which have not been mentioned in these sources have been totally provided, have been supplied, and information about them have been supplied by archaeology. And sometimes social aspects have also been reconstructed with the help of archaeology, especially in medieval period. There is a haramsara. This institution existed, how they lived, what type of the queens and their maid servants, kanis they have lived there. It could be possible by studying the structure of Haramsara. Haramsara structure clearly indicated queens which were having and you can say, uh, belongs to a upper strata, queens belongs to a middle strata, and it can easily be such type of the stratification in the social life of the Mughals can easily be reconstructed on the basis of the study of structure with the help of the archaeological tools. And but how we uses how we uses this archaeology in the medieval and during the medieval period. And medieval sites or antiquities can be classified into two categories. The sites, medieval sites and antiquities, which are buried in the ground and take the shape of mounds. And a large number of the medieval towns, they are now in the shape of mounds, have been deserted, have been sometimes have been decayed and take the shape of mounds. Here we need you can say the original tools of the archaeology like exploration and excavations. And a large number of the towns have been discovered, and their history has been created only through the excavations. And a large number of the medieval sites and antiquities are survived above the grounds. This is a second classification, second category. And whatever exists above the grounds on the surface can further be classified into structural remains and minor antiquities. You know, you may raise a question. I have already pinpointed that question. What is the difference between historical archaeology and medieval archaeology? A large number of the scholars, they are of the opinion medieval archaeology is a part of historical archaeology. But I would like to tell you one very important aspect. So these medieval archaeology is having a difference with that of historical archaeology. How the historical archaeology is different from medieval archaeology? In case of the historical archaeology and medieval archaeology is having a majority of the structures, majority of the sites survived above the surface. Just a minute, just a minute. Okay, you know, during the medieval archaeology deals with the structure that are in a majority survive above the ground. Historical archaeology, in case of the historical archaeology, especially of ancient India, where we have a structures that never survive above the ground. They almost take the shape of the mound. And a large number of these structures belonging to the medieval period we found, because medieval period is a very near period to us and ancient period is very far period from us. So medieval archaeology is having a lot of difference with historical archaeology. Here we have to deal with the structural remains. Here to deal with the minor antiquities. On the name of structural remains in the historical archaeology of the ancient period, we have a few monuments in comparison to the monuments of the medieval, surviving monuments of the medieval period. And the first above the grounds, the medieval sites are dominated by structural remains. Here, what type of the structural remains we come across? Forts and towns. A large number of the forts and towns still survives. These forts and towns have been referred by the, you can say, contemporary sources. But how this fortification took place, what was the fortification technology, what type of the scientific advancement used to make the fortification invincible, here archaeology played a great role. Towns, towns have been defined, have been referred by the medieval sources. But what was the town planning? How the houses have been blocked in a different category? What type of the stratification lies in the town, having a different type of the structure based on the different shapes? So many things have been referred by the archaeology, have been created by the archaeology. And even Agra, Delhi, these towns, Burhanpur, Lahore, have been referred in the medieval sources frequently. But what was their nature? What was their character? Physically, could be possible only through archaeology. Another important part of the structural remains belonging to the medieval period that could survive is the aquatic constructions. You know, without water, no life could be possible. In the medieval period, a large number of the water bodies have been created. During the Sultanate, a large number of the examples, water was bringing through the canals to Delhi from Yamuna. So many things you found. This aquatic constructions have been referred. Their place has been referred. Their nomenclature has been referred. Sometimes their nature, it's a step bell, it's a bell, have been referred. But how they have been constructed, how the whole hydraulic technology have been involved in creating a water body, it has not been mentioned in medieval sources. It could be possible by surveying this structure. It could be possible by reconstructing these structure with the help of archaeological tools. Apart from these two major categories, other structural remains can be classified non-religious structures. Non-religious structures includes palaces. Non-religious structure includes hammams. Non-religious structures include pleasure palaces. Non-religious structures includes novels haveli. Non-religious structures, if you go at present, go to Tughlaqabad, then you found the novels structure in, they are concentrated in one part of the Tughlaqabad. So non-religious structure are subject to study. And these religious structure in the passing, in the contemporary written sources, you found that this Haveli was constructed by Firoz Khan. But how? What was the space arrangement in this structure? How the elevation of this Haveli has been created? How the rooms have been built? What was the arrangement of it? Different spaces in this Haveli could not never have been told by the contemporary resources. And to your surprise, I have got one very interesting references. One, there was a references in the contemporary sources. One novel of the Jahangir has created a very important haveli, important, and you can say garden and with structure. And Jahangir went there and he surveyed that structure. Besides these three, four lines, the contemporary sources are totally silent. Jagir appreciated this structure, the what lies in this structure, what type of the technology have been used, what type of the architecture has been used, what type of the decoration has been used, and it could be possible only through archaeological survey or archaeological studies. Another important category of the structure remains is religious structure. I think India is a place where we have a large number of the religious structures survived from the medieval period. And how a dome, how these three domes have been surmounted on a mosque. These religious structures have been appreciated by contemporary writers. But only one or two sentences they have written about their architecture. But how these structures could be survived, the base has been provided by the archaeology. Without studying these religious structure through the archaeology, we cannot reconstruct the synthesis of different architectural styles, space arrangement in this structure, religious structure, and the technology, especially the building technology to build this structure. It could be possible only through archaeology. Another important part of the above the ground, this medieval antiquities is having a minor antiquities. Minor antiquities includes like terracotta objects. You know, each houses, each palace, each havelis are equipped with a drainage system. How these drainage system have been built, what type of the pipes they have used, terracotta pipes. This information always coming from the archaeology sites, like terracotta ceramics, pottery. You can say the decorative pottery, sculptures, terracotta sculptures. How these sculptures sometimes is a reference of these sculptures we have found, but how these sculptures have been built through molding, or how it could not be given in medieval sources, written sources. And this whole study could be possible by applying the archaeology. Same in stone sculptures. Stone sculptures, it's a 2D sculptures, 3D sculptures, and how they have been created. Again, we are thankful to archaeology. Same with metal objects, same with organic objects. Organic objects means the bone pieces have been used to create sometime some objects. And organic objects like the, you can say, हाथी के दांत को भी हम एक be created a sculptures. So such type of the things could be only possible only through archaeology. And I think I should stop here for having a very good discussion. Now I initiate the discussion. This is the archaeology. And to your surprise, medieval archaeology and in medieval period, archaeology is not only playing such an important role, but archaeology is also very crucial in the colonial period. Like Metcalfe House was burnt down at Delhi. What this house is known for its architecture. And to your surprise, we don't have any contemporary sources that tells us what type of the architecture, whether the Gothic style, classical style involved in this Metcalfe house. We don't have any information. Then we started the archaeological study of these ruins. any fragments of the Metcalfe house, then we are able to create the whole history of the Metcalfe house. And to your surprise, physical material remains. Our daily life is, if talking about politics, talking about society, social customs, so dress, so many things, even our, you can see the economy. But one thing you keep in your mind, we people are have to encounter with the material day in daily life, and these material could be studied only through the application of the archaeological tools. That's all about. It's a very brief how we uses the archaeology in the period of, especially during the period of medieval India and later on. Thank you very much. Now my this discussion is open for questions and so many things.
Thank you, Professor Manvendra Kumar Pundhir, sir, for your insightful lecture, beautifully explaining medieval history through archaeological sources. I hope you all found it beneficial. I want to say something about Manvendra Kumar Pundhir, sir, is a renowned historian and trained archaeologist. He has a lot of experience in teaching, research, and university administration. Professor Pundhir, sir, is the coordinator of Disability Unity of University as well as coordinator of archaeological section of the department. At present, he is also the Joint Secretary of Indian History Congress. Professor Pundhir sir is the founding editor of two journals. One of them is Atit. Uh, in the field of academic, Professor Pundhir sir has impressively 48 research papers and articles and has been presented at different national and international conferences since 1992, focusing on archaeology, medieval history, as well as Rajasthani history. Sir has also worked on several major and minor research projects such as Mughal Sub-Imperial Monument at Agra, a study of Mughal lesser known monument at Agra, and many more. Now, for the next half hour, we have a question answer session. So feel free to ask any questions or seek clarification. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
I'm here. I always believe in a very interactive discussion. So I invite the students, I invite my research scholars, they have any query, they can tell me. And it's a, this work is a very stressful, is a very stressed work, because in this generally we have to go out, surveys the building, and till date I have surveyed or studied more than 1200 ruined structure. Just imagine. And now I invite any question, any query, any sort of query. Anybody can ask how we can use the archaeology in social system, in economy. And I tell you one thing, if you give me a small structure, I can reconstruct its political, social, cultural, and economic history. In my last lecture, I'm having some sort of the technical glitches, so I failed to interact with you. And now I think Mahendra Pratap, you want to ask any question?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, my question is, wall painting is considered the archaeology?
Pardon? Speak bit
Wall,
loudly.
wall painting considered the archaeology?
What considered as archaeology? I fail to get your.
Wall painting is considered the archaeological source.
Just a minute. Just a minute. Internet is fluctuating. Just a minute. Just a minute. Don't go away. So sorry, so sorry. Mahendra, your question is painting is an archaeological source.
Yes, sir. Yes, my question is, wall painting is considered as archaeological sources in different
Yeah,
places.
you know, if painting is an archaeological source, but one thing you keep in your mind, you have to authenticate the painting. Painting
This,
can be tempered, sculptures cannot be tempered. You followed my point?
yes, sir.
And other, like
Okay.
uh, few students, they joined us from outside. Anybody? I have given a lot of food for thoughts. You ask Suhail, Ruksar, Bushra, Saif, Aksa, Shivani. Yes, Akhtar. Now you unmute your mic. Your mic is muted.
Sorry, sir. Sir, you have discussed about science and technology. So I have a query. How has the use of technology such as LIDAR, LIDAR and
Huh,
3D
huh.
enhanced the field of Indian archaeology in recent years, sir?
You know, LIDAR and these all scientific inventions are helping the archaeology.
Yes, sir.
These instruments have been used for survey the ground.
Okay, sir.
And what was happened? So sometime we have such type of the landscape where we cannot approach
Okay.
personally.
Okay.
And LIDAR technology we are using to, and you can say to survey the subsurface area, subsurface,
Okay.
beneath the ground, below the ground. At least we have a technology like LIDAR and other technology that can survey, that can tell you something lies, something solid lies in the ground up to 3 meter. Up to 3 meter.
Okay.
You know, this technology has been used in India, but what lies inside, how you interpret the things which lies beneath the ground, again needs a human expertise. Again needs a expertise.
Okay.
And machines and this technology can tell you that beneath the chamber of the chairman there is a solid, and you can say obstacle. But what is this object? It is subject to the interpretation by the archaeologist. Anywhere, this technology we are using on a large scale, but this technology cannot substitute the interpretation of the archaeologist.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Technology can give and it can facilitate our working, but cannot interpret.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, one question.
Yeah, of course. At least you are making this discussion alive. Yes, sir.
Sir, how do archaeological excavation help us understand the impact of medieval invasions and conflict on the cultural landscape, sir?
Okay. I
Cultural
ask a
landscape
very
of India.
mention first about the battles of wars.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
After, you know, there is a lot of casualty.
Yes, sir.
There is a lot of casualty. If I came out victorious, I can give a proper burial to my persons.
Yes.
What we have done to the defeated army. The mass graves have been found.
Yes, sir.
Apart from it, when there is a battle, we have a lot of, you can say, things came out of this battle.
Yes, sir.
At that time, some pieces of the cannons you found there, and such type of the material which was the waste material of the war remained there.
Yes, sir.
You try to understand what I'm conveying, huh?
Yeah, yes,
And
sir.
today you are having a dozer, you are having an earth mover, so you
Yes.
can remove the debris, you can remove the waste. But at that time, this waste was lying useless, and slowly and gradually, a strata has been developed there. It was found inside it buried inside the ground.
Yes, sir.
If we excavated the major battlefields,
Yes.
I'm sure we get a large number of the things there. Sometime the, you can say, उन लोगों के कवच, sometime the pieces of the sword, sometime the pieces of the lancer, so many things we can get from there. But to your surprise, we have never excavated any battle site.
Hmm.
And I cite one very important example. When Akbar went to capture the Chittor, he
Okay.
created a Ginni Minar
Oh,
in front of the hills of Chittorgarh. And today, archaeological, this Ginni Minar, he gave a surfeit to the person who can bring a यानी कहना चाहिए गधे पर मिट्टी जो लेके आएगा उसे हम वो देंगे, ये सब है. But
अच्छा.
to your surprise, this Ginni Minar is still existing today. It is covered by heavy vegetation.
Okay.
It was not having any stone. It
Hmm.
is totally created by the earth. So archaeology played a very great role.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
And okay, what's about my other students? I think they are sleeping, beneath the quilts. They are not raising any question. And all the scientific process, how you distilled the water was not talked about in the contemporary written sources. But when I would like to cite one very important example. I have surveyed the Mughal hammams. These hammams are known for maintaining a temperature. But the contemporary sources are totally silent. How the temperature was being maintained constant in the hammam, it could be possible only through the archaeological study. How they created the tunnels, the simple, how they created a terracotta pipes in the walls, how hot water circulated in these terracotta pipes, so many things. The whole process, whole scientific technology of the hammams can be studied or can be reconstructed only through archaeology.
Mhm.
Anybody else? No. Everybody is silent. The archaeology is having only guiding principle. If you go to any turning point and you sip a cup of tea, you left some material there. It's a different case को उस material को लोग डस्टबिन में फेंक के फिर फेंक देते हैं दूर. Otherwise, everybody is creating a material for archaeology.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Okay?
Okay, sir.
No question.
No question, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor.
Just a minute. One question I'm having. What is the present status of archaeology in India? Aksar, to your surprise, archaeology is only confined to ancient India, confined to the Stone Age and Proto-historic period in our mind. Archaeology is something, it looks like we don't have any knowledge about it, why we should do it. But archaeology is a process, it's a method, it's not a discipline. We can use if you are surveying the manuscript in a archives, it's a part of the archaeology. These original manuscript, not the copy of the script, these original manuscripts are the part of archaeology, to your surprise. And in India, now the scope of the archaeology is getting increased every day. Clear? No other question? And I tell you one very important aspect. One of my student, kahan gaya, Mahendra Pratap, he's working on a biographical work of a great personality. Mahendra, archaeology also played a crucial role in writing and reconstructing the biographical
Yes,
work
yes,
on this personality.
yes, sir.
What paper they have used, what type of the pen they have used, so many things you can reconstruct it on the basis of archaeology.
Okay. Sir, my question, another question is,
Ji.
uh, in the regarding of the environmental studies, at that times, which types of environment are exist, just like famines and the flooded and other earthquakes. So, would you consider, would you find the some sources through archaeology in that contemporary environmental conditions?
Yeah, you know, we have a historical geography. This specialization is known as historical geography, where we have uses the archaeogeographical sources. And archaeogeographical sources help us to reconstruct the contemporary environment, thorough environment. And to your surprise, this archaeogeographical sources tells us that sometime the Jaisalmer, the area of the Jaisalmer, this desert was the part of the ocean. You followed my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
हाँ, तो archaeogeography is a interdisciplinary approach to study the environment. And you know, about the water, we generally declared that this region was once having a plenty of water, but now it is dried up. And when it was a plenty of water, there was a crop like sugarcane, but now there is no sugarcane. So here we have to take the help of archaeogeographical sources. Like in Atroli Tehsil, I discovered a Mughal sugarcane crusher, Mughal Kolu. And to my surprise, at that time, there was a scarcity of water in this region. But when we started to study, when we archaeologically surveyed this area, to your surprise, during the period of the Mughals, this Atroli region was having a plenty of water and sugarcane was the staple crop there. But now there is no sugarcane there. So such type of the change in environment, we have to take the help of archaeogeographical sources.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sir, can you explain how thermoluminescence technique help us in identifying the data? Okay. You know, thermoluminescence, TL dating. What is TL dating? TL dating is totally based on when you use the clay and when you make a pottery, when you put this pottery in baking process in the kiln to bake it, at that time this clay gypsum started to heat up, and when it was heat up, it left its property. But in the course of time, when this pottery was built and you started to use this pottery, then you, after some time, you discard this pottery, and this pottery was lying in the ground, on the ground, inside the ground. This gypsum started to gain its property. And you can say, especially in the laboratory, we can easily calculate the losing and gaining the property by gypsum. And physically, the gaining the property by the gypsum and losing the property by the gypsum is having, scientifically, is having a some time period. Through this decided time period, we can easily calculate the end and a time frame of the pottery through this thermoluminescence technique. It's purely a scientific technique. Like carbon dating, carbon is having a cycle, carbon isotope started to decline. in the course of time, and we can easily calculate the how much carbon has been declined, and through this we can in the laboratory can calculate the time. Again, it's a scientific process. In the same way, thermoluminescence works. Thermal TL dating is always used on the ceramics and terracotta. Is that clear? Dating could be possible only through archaeology. Sometimes we have a mausoleum, we have a tomb building, not having any epigraph, not having any passing references in the contemporary sources. In that condition, we uses the archaeological tools, we uses the proto-characteristic features of the period to match, to date this structure. We generally uses this structure. Even archaeologically, we can use the brick to identify the time frame of any structure. I can easily tell you that this wall is constructed by Shahjahan or by Jahangir or by Akbar. Again, here the archaeological expertise is needed. No new questions. Okay, Akhtar, I think students, they are shivering with cold.